Hello and welcome to race number 8 of season 12 of the All Assist Off League. It is the final race of the season, and in addition to that is the swan song for both myself and Skin within the All Assist Off League. So joining me for the final race of the season and our final race within this league, Skin, welcome back. I know you've had a couple of weeks off, but it's great to have you back with me. We're going to finish this as we started, and that is on a high with a probably expected winner, isn't it?
Adam-san, we are here in Japan. I was going to start with a Japanese accent and try and keep it up for the entire qualifying sprint race and full race, but probably wouldn't have gone down well. So I'm going to stick to calling you Adam-san for the entirety of this evening's proceedings, as we, as you say, conclude our stint as the commentators for the All Assist Off League. You're right, I did have to pull out due to other commitments in my life, but I have managed to put a bit of time aside to join you for a couple since then, and yeah, made sure that I was joining you for last time as we commentate on the final race of this season, the third season in which we've commentated for the All Assist Off League. And it's as Vinnie Jones once said in a WF ring, it's going to be emotional.
And like Tyson Fury and Ric Flair, you are back out of retirement for one more time, but who knows what's around the corner for us. We are on board with Peter Caspi making his way through Sector 2 on his outlap at the moment. Like Skin just said, it is our third season covering, and it is our third season with a different winner. We saw at the end of the first season VSM Sandman pick up the win. He is racing for McLaren at the moment. That was with Ferrari when he first joined. We've also had Danger David, who won last year with the Red Bull. He's currently in the Mercedes, driving alongside Pleasant Snake, his third different teammate for this season. And Herman, who walked out the champion for this year, is racing today in the Aston Martin. So still plenty to go for in terms of the Constructors' Championship. Herman won the drivers last weekend, or 2 weekends ago should I say, with Danger David finishing in third place in the end. It does mean we still have a lot up for grabs. We are on board, as I say, with Peter Caspi, who's going to be the first one to set a time lap, unless this becomes invalidated. We've seen throughout the course of this season plenty of drivers with invalidated lap times. Now, driving through Japan, we can watch him going through this quite comfortably at the moment. Skin, we've driven through this track quite a lot, and it's one of those tracks that, I know we say this on most of the ones that we watch on the All Assist Off League, that it's one that we tend to struggle with, but this certainly is one that neither of us can grasp the sort of corners for. We catch a chicane, we end up in the wall, especially on the bit that Peter Caspi is going through at the moment, just at the end of Sector 1, that quick right before that long straight, and then the long left-hander corner. It's one that we always struggle on, isn't it?
Yes, Adam-san. It is purely because we are nowhere near the level. I'm not sure what gives us the right to commentate and judge these performances, because we are not in any way, shape or form qualified to do so. As Max Verstappen said about the Las Vegas race, Monaco is Champions League and the Las Vegas track is the National League. And us being fans of a National League side, Chesterfield, Upham, Sheffield United, but we're all town, aren't we? So it doesn't matter. And yeah, we are certainly the National League in terms of our calibre and skill on this game. And these lads are certainly the Champions League. But yeah, that sort of winding left, right, in sort of the middle of Sector 1 is certainly a struggle. It'll be very interesting as Peter Caspi sets a 1:29.5 to kick off proceedings. It will be very, very interesting to see the level of driving, and I will be interested to see as well in that first lap where the cars are quite bunched together, especially sort of between that 5th position and 15th that we know can get quite bunched up in the first lap and a half or two. Be interesting to see how they manoeuvre through those corners, because they're quick corners. They're not really the ones where you can slow down. They're not really the ones where you can make a mistake either. So when you're surrounded by 3 or 4 different cars, and there's going to be multiple cars in that situation, it could spell trouble. But yeah, it will be interesting to see. In around about, half an hour to 45 minutes time, depending on any potential incidents that we have, as Nate Danger David sets the fastest time of the qualifying session so far with a 28.6, and Sandman continuing that phenomenal form that he has been in recently, going pole with a 27.6. The first driver to set a sub-28 lap, and just almost 6/10 quicker, just about 6/10 quicker than Truckster, who has got up into second.
Spoken like the words of Max Verstappen from this past weekend. But if, like you say, Gabby Agbonlahor has taught us absolutely anything, it is that you do not have to be talented behind a mic to have an opinion said on the airwaves. So we'll stay on board with Pleasant Snake making his way through in the Mercedes at the moment. His teammate Danger David is up in 4th place, 9/10 behind VSM Sandman, as you rightly just said, set a 1:27.6. Truckster in 2nd place. Pleasant Snake will be hoping that next season he's got a permanent seat. He'll be alongside Herman with those thoughts as well. Herman now out on an outlap on the Aston Martin alongside his teammate Skid Solo, who sat in the pits. We're coming around the final couple of corners now for Pleasant Snake. He's just evaded the yellow flagged Sector 2 at the moment, going through Sector 3. 1:27.6 is the time to beat. He does set a 1:28.4. That gets him just above Danger David, his teammate, but it does leave them on the second and third row of the grid respectively. A lot of times are starting to make their way in. You'd like to think that Suribo, DDB890 and maybe Racing Wheel as well, who are 5+ seconds behind the race leader at the moment, will be going out there for extra laps. We do have this 18-minute qualifying session for you. That will be followed by a quick sprint race, which I think takes around about 9 laps, and then we'll have a 50% lapped race to finish off this season. We'll go through the permutations during the start-up of the sprint race while everybody's sorting out their strategies as well, because we all love permutations towards the back end of a season. On the board now with Toxic CZ10 on board with Toxic CZ10 down in 15th place. He's got a 1:27 as a time to beat. I don't think he's going to make it on this occasion. He goes around the last couple of corners, takes them smoothly. I think he's a little bit late with the DRS though. Going around onto the pit straight, 1:27.6. He's bailed and he's gone into the pits. I do not blame him for that. It looked like he weren't going to beat his time, so why waste the tyres? As somebody goes off track there very wide, is one of the Alpines, as we see Quan making his way through. Going wide won't affect your time, of course, if you're on an outlap. However, it would also affect your tyres. So with the all assists off league, all this kind of stuff is taken into account. And we've got another Alpine there, I think was off track as well. Is that 2 Alpines I've just seen pass in different areas off track as Quan's making his way through? Goes purple in Sector 1. Quite convincing for him if he can keep this momentum up through Sector 2 now onto a long left-handed corner. One of those that I always seem to catch the chicane and end up in the wall of. There's plenty of areas that are like that in Japan though. Making his way through Sector 2, 1:27.6 the time to beat to get ahead of the McLaren of VSM Sandman, trying to assert his dominance that he had throughout the course of the first season that we covered this for. We'll jump onto the fastest lap so you can see the fastest lap that each of these drivers have set down the left hand side of the screen. We have another yellow flag through Sector 3, but that's been removed by the time that Quan in the Williams will get around there. So we're now into the final couple of corners on his timed lap. 9 minutes 50 seconds remains as he goes round the final couple of corners. That time becomes invalidated and forces him into the pit, so that purple Sector 1, that's been wasted. We'll jump on board with Herman now, the current world champion in 18th place. Him and Danger David have been a formidable force throughout the course of this season. We'll see if he can beat the time of 1:27.6. He's just behind it on a 1:27.7. We've seen plenty of back and forth racing between Sandman and Herman a couple of weeks ago. We'll see if we can see a repeat of that later on. This is the one that's responsible for bringing us into this league, in fact, isn't he, Skin?
Aggie-san, I don't know if you're having any issues, mate, but it sounds like you're shouting from another room there.
Yeah, well, hopefully this is better now. Hopefully this is better. I don't know. How long was that going for? How long was I at the other side of the room for?
It was literally just that last line there, so I didn't catch what you said.
That's absolutely fine. My question was, Quincy, who's now in 20th place, is the one that's responsible for bringing us into this league.
Yeah. What about him?
Well, I was going through the standings and I was letting you take over as Quincy's doing his timed lap, mate, but that's absolutely fine.
All right, well, my question for you is, what happened?
What do you mean, what happened?
Why did you sound like you're in another room?
Oh, it's dodgy headphones, isn't it? Part of the reason why I've got to retire from this sort of stuff is technical stuff, and it's just typical. As an old-fashioned bloke like myself, does not like modern-day technology, and it is forcing me out of a career path. But what we're going to do. We're on board now with T-Bran going round onto the pit straight. He sets a 1:29.6. That's good enough for 11th place for him, as Truxter retires from the session from 3rd place in the Alpha Tauri. So we'll see if that can change his positioning, but the best he's going to get, unless he can rejoin the session in the next 7 minutes or so, will be 3rd place. We'll jump on board with DDB890. He's out on a timed lap now. His best time is a 1:30.9, so plenty of time for him to try and make up if the Ferrari can try and compete towards the top end of this leaderboard. Now, when we started, Ferrari were kind of challenging very nicely, weren't they? It was Sam, and I'm going to be honest, I can't remember, and I apologise to who it is, his teammate. Can you?
You are, mate.
Samman's teammate from Ferrari back in the first season.
Sorry, I was just changing my controller, mate. Do you know what I mean? Because my other one had a loose trigger. Now we're having to hold it awkward, so I didn't change camera. But
technology.
Now, mate.
I tell you, it's technology.
I'm going to completely disregard everything you've just said, mate, and I'm going to tell you that I'm on board with Quincy, who is flying round the track currently at 104 miles an hour in 5th gear. Honestly, mate, if you were doing the start motorway, you'd be asking them to slow down, but in this game, it seems like they're going at pedestrian pace. 75 miles an hour he's currently going at now, which are speeds that in this country, if you did that down the M1, you would be caught with a speeding ticket. So Quincy is clearly keeping his tyres. Maybe he's going to pit now, or he's setting himself up to go big to try and climb further up the grid. But let's see. He's going into the pit, so we'll move on from him as we get on board with Sandman. Sandman in Sector 1, just going into Sector 2, currently going a 10th quicker than the lap he set for provisional pole. He is looking to increase the gap between him and Herman. He's probably seen that lap from Herman. Like you said, he's just behind him, 4/100ths of a second, and he's probably thought, right, with this 6.5 minutes or so left, I need to make sure that I'm increasing that gap, because Herman has got it in the locker to find that difference and take pole away. So he's in Sector 2 at the moment, going into that long hairpin on the Japanese track. Early hours of the morning it is in the UK. We are, however, on repeat, so it is 7:45 in the evening. We haven't watched it live because I don't know about you, Aggie, but I don't think I'd have had the capabilities to be commentating on this live at 6 o'clock this morning. But anyway, Sandman takes that final right left into the final corner, the right turn onto the pit straight, and sets a 1:27.4, shaving around 2/10 off of his previous provisional pole lap. What a lap from Sandman San, and you've got to think that he's trying to get that confidence back. Herman's come in, he's took the world title off him. Sandman is dominated in pretty much every race and every season that we've commentated on, other than this one. So is this an opportunity for Sandman to get some confidence and get back on form, ready to reclaim his title next season? Now Herman is confirmed as having a permanent seat in the league.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, he's missed a couple of races this season, which could have proven very pivotal in the championship battle, but it did go down to last weekend with Danger David and Herman to determine who the winner was going to be. I'm on board with Kwan, who got purple in Sector 1 on the first lap that he attempted, and that was aborted. He's now gone purple in Sector 2, and he's got a 1:27.4 as the time to beat to get himself ahead of Sandman and onto provisional pole in the Williams. What an accomplishment that would be if he can get it. He sets a 1:28.8, and that puts him down in 10th place. So he's got the potential to cause an upset at the front of this grid if he can bring that momentum from Sector 1 of his first lap and Sector 2 of his second lap into Sector 3 of his third lap, which is going to continue going through now. Just over 4 minutes left of the qualifying session. We'll jump on board with Tobalenzen, who's making his way through at a very slow pace. I think he might have just steadied things down a little bit. I know you mentioned about 75 miles per hour earlier being very quick. Most of these cars are going around about 120, 130 miles per hour. So you say now 75 is quite quick for the motorway, and it's a bit of a stroll. In comparison to some of these drivers and the pace that they've got, it certainly is a bit of a stroll. As Tobalenzen takes that corner at 105 miles per hour onto the pit straight, will go 3 seconds slower than his quickest time, which keeps him in 14th. He momentarily drops down into 15th place, though, as the time has just been beaten by Kwan, who was just behind him. Jumping on board with Racing Wheel, who's out there at the moment. We'll keep an eye on things with Herman as he's making his way around on an outlap. So when he goes onto his time lap, we will jump on board with him to see the impact he can have on the front row of the grid, see if he can jump ahead of BSM Sandman for the sprint race start. We are on board, as I say, with Racing Wheel as he's on a timed lap at the moment. Absolutely flying around that first corner. Nearly goes off onto the grass onto the second corner, but there's some S's now for him to be able to keep his car sturdy and steady going round through Sector 1. His time to beat is 1:27.4 to beat Sandman. Realistically, I think Racing Wheel can compete up there. He has done on a couple of occasions, but I think in Japan, a 1:28 is a more realistic target for him to be aiming for, especially considering his first lap hit a 1:30.9. So plenty of room for improvement. Skin, we can see Herman out on his outlap at the moment. Do you think it's going to be him that takes pole? Do you think it's going to be Sandman that keeps it? Or do you think someone's going to upset the rhythm?
Well, Herman's going to have to find about 3/10 Adam San, and look, if anyone can do it, it is him. He's shown what he's capable of in his short time in this league. I'm just on board with Quincy at the moment as he goes into Sector 3, currently 8/10, nearly 9/10 quicker than his previous lap, which, as we know, wasn't his best, currently sat down as 16th. So I'll just take you through these last couple of corners as Quincy goes around the penultimate corner into that final right turn onto pit straight and sets a 1:29.1, which is 1 second or over 1 second quicker, puts him up into 12th place. Can Quincy find that extra bit of time to get himself into that top 10 and approaching the top 5 before the session is over? He is going to have to do it on this lap as we are under 2 minutes remaining. But where the main event is, where the money is right now, it is that race for provisional pole. Sandman on an outlap yet again. Normally he's comfortable and has retired at points in historically in qualifying, but probably still concerned about what kind of time Herman can produce. And Herman currently a tenth slower in Sector 1 compared to his previous fastest lap. So Herman is going to have to find time here in Sectors 2 and 3 if he's going to have any chance of not only bettering his previous fastest time, but more importantly, finding that round 3/10 that he needs to get provisional pole off of Sandman. But Sandman is out again. Here we go. Herman will have enough time to do one more lap after this. There's 1 minute left in qualifying, and Herman is around 20 seconds away from crossing the line. So he will have time if this isn't fast enough, but he is very quickly running out of time. Adam San, he's into Sector 3 now. Take us through the last couple of corners.
Yeah, it's something I just need to confess as well. I've just found out that he isn't currently the Drivers' Champion, and I'll go into that in just a few moments' time. He's going to try and beat a 1:27.4, gets a 1:27.5, 1/10 quicker than his fastest time. If he can keep that momentum through this lap, he's still got one last shot at it. If he can make it, he's gone to the side, he's binned it, yeah. So he's going to start second place. BSM Sandman's going to start out on first. So the understanding that I have is if this wasn't a sprint race, the championship's over. But the way it works in the All Assist Soft League is you get points based upon your qualifying, you get points based upon your sprint race, and you get points based upon your race outcome. So there are 149.7 points separating Herman from Danger David. The most that anybody has picked up in one race this season is Herman from race 1, which was 130 points. Now that's finishing front row of the grid, winning qualifying, and then winning the race with the fastest lap. Now, if Danger David, despite not having pole position, can win the sprint race with the fastest lap and win the race with the fastest lap, Danger David could still win this Drivers' Championship. That's my understanding from the points that I'm looking at the moment. So it is still up there at the moment between the two of them. Ivor's in third place. I don't think he's even racing today, but even if he was, he's out of the championship as well. Just looking at the Constructors' Championship, I said I'd go through them whilst we prepare for the sprint race. As we wait with the checkered flag for qualifying, we'll jump on board with RSO121. He's taken a dive into the sand. We'll not bother with that. We'll go on board with Pleasant Snake, see if he can beat the time. He finishes 0.02 of a second slower than his best time. Let's see what Veriduco can do in the Haas. He's got a 1:27 to beat as well. He's finished 4 seconds slower. And then Racing Wheel, who's probably abandoned his lap as well. We'll see how he's getting on, 19 seconds slower. So we'll not waste our time there. And we'll jump straight onto the Constructors' Championship. As I mentioned, that's over. It's the Constructors' Championship that is over and done with. Now, not only is it over and done with, but I think based upon the outstanding performances that we've seen from both Herman and Danger David, which you could probably say is a heavyweight battle we'd love to see on different teams, when the two are united on one team, it's almost like... I'm trying to think of a reference to make towards it. It's like the Galacticos, you know, the Real Madrid, the domination from a side, that they've actually finished this season 1,125 points, 538 points ahead of second place. What's your thoughts on that, Skin? That's a good effort. And it started with Danger David and D. Perez. You know, we've spoken before about their experience together. D. Perez had to miss a couple of races. It's allowed Herman to take a seat. Herman has took the seat beside Danger David. It's almost been unfair on the rest of the league. You know, two drivers that are so dominant together, that are just outperforming everybody, working together. It means that Danger David's now back-to-back Constructors' Championship. He'll love that. I remember speaking to him and him saying that it's all about working it together as a team. But you're not going to tell me that he's going into this race believing that the Drivers' Championship is over as well.
Well, as we've always said, mate, it ain't over until it's over. Any given Sunday, all the fucking classic cheesy sayings that you can use, until it is mathematically impossible, there is still a chance. And look, if there is any driver on this grid, any driver that's ever been a part of this league in the time that we've commentated on, if there's any driver that can pull themselves out from absolute adversity and still deliver a result, I'll stay up for the rest of the time to argue with you that one person is named Danger David. We've seen him time and time again come back from adversity, come back from struggles, have to battle through obstacles and early setbacks. If anyone can do it, surely it's him.
Well, what might add to his benefit might be a bit of a detriment to him as well. It depends on how you look at it. It's raining. So the wet weather's going to make it, of course, much tougher. It's going to make it a longer race, which might give him a bit more time if he does skid off to get himself back up from the back of the grid. Like you say, we've seen that plenty of times. But it could also be that other drivers have the same sort of issue. We know how going into turn one, it's a quick first corner in Japan. It could mean that any sort of mistake from any of these drivers catching a chicane wrong, you know, your brakes locking up in the rain, especially under cold weather. You know, when you start the race, the tyres, the brakes, they're all quite cold, aren't they, in this game? So, you know, going into those first corners could really make or break the race. And I know it's only the sprint race at the moment, but, you know, if that happens to Herman or to Sandman, Danger David could be looking from the outside with an opportunity to get ahead of either or both of them, couldn't he?
Yeah, definitely, mate. Absolutely, Adam San.
So, what are we thinking heading into the sprint race? Who do you think is going to finish on the top step and take it into the actual race itself on the front row of the grid? We've got Sandman and Herman at the moment. Do you think that's how it's going to stand? Do you think there's going to be any switches?
Again, try to go off history as much as I can. Herman has dominated when it comes to race day. Sandman, we know, is the reigning, defending, undisputed, all assists off league champion. But when Herman has got ahead, he's got ahead very comfortably, and we've seen times recently where Sandman has had the lead and Herman's managed to overtake him. We've also seen times recently where and has managed to get further and further ahead from Sandman. So again, rain is going to play a big factor in this. We know it's a sprint race, we know it's just all-out attack for these first few laps, but despite Sandman currently having pole, I'm going to go with Herman taking the win.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. I think the rain makes it a bit tougher to predict, but I think Herman's always played it safe. He's always been quite composed in these sort of circumstances. So I think he's a safe bet. I think Sandman would be a safe bet. I like Pleasant Snake looking from the outside in. I think he's had quite a good season. He's been one of the breakout drivers this season. I think I'll give him that credit for in the Mercedes. So I think I could see him getting maybe a podium as well. I think at the end of this, it will still be Sandman followed by Herman. We might even finish this session on a safety car. Hopefully that won't bug the game out like it did 2 weeks ago and we had to restart everything. We got to, you obviously weren't here, Skin, but we got to lap 19 of 29 and there was a red flag and the game bugged out and kicked everybody out of each other's servers. So you could all carry on watching it or playing it, but nobody else was online with you, and it became an offline race as soon as the red flag hit. So that must have been a glitch with the game. But there has been an update today. Hopefully that kind of rubbish has been eliminated. It's amazing how 4 months on from a game that's been released, you can't get an online red flag without the game breaking. It's outrageous. I'm going to say Sandman to finish.
I don't want to say it's ever since EA took over, but...
Well, it is.
Yeah.
We don't want to say it, but you can't lie in these sort of areas, can you? It is, and we know what to expect from EA games, don't we? Being FIFA and Madden fans in the past. Right, so Sandman is currently out on pole, ready for the sprint race due to kick off in a few moments' time. We're just waiting for everybody to complete their strategies before we're able to get things underway. Herman is in second place. It does mean a big climb is required from Danger David, who's in around 7th or 8th position at the end of that qualifying session in the final race of Season 12. Hopefully, we'll be back with the sprint race in just a few moments' time. It's 9 laps, and the rules of the sprint race are quite different to that of the normal race because it's a shortened version of the race. It means that people do not need to worry about going into the pits. Do not need to worry about going into the pits unless damage actually requires it. Just looking at the word on the forum, to quote Skin of 2022, and that is that they're waiting for the rain to stop before they can press play on the race starting. Trugster always with his input. I
like it.
It is a nice strategic idea, isn't it? Yes, so they don't have to pit. I'm trying to think of the way through it. Of course, with rain, you don't have to pit anyway, but in the sprint race, even if it was dry weather, a driver would not need to pit to go on to a different set of tyres like you would in the race. So it is straight through, barring an incident where you feel like you might need to go and change for different tyres or change part of your car. Still the same rules apply. You cannot change the back of the car or the back wing or any of that area. The front wing can be changed if required from any sort of incidents. Penalties could be carried over into the race if required. But we're getting ready for things to get back underway. Skin. I don't normally write down much filler material. You tend to have a lot of different random facts, but you can save it till the race, because the sprint race, as I say, that is about to get underway. They don't want to hear your facts. It's lights out, and here we go. 9 laps of a sprint race are underway here in Japan. We're on board with Sandman, who is out in front going into the first corner, keeps the outside line as Trugster gets a nice little overtake over Herman. There's a bit of a battle going on there as Danger David has crashed out of the session. We've just spoken about what could actually have gone on with Danger David in this race. And in the sprint race, he's out, which means in the race itself, he'll be allowed back in, but he will start from the back of the grid as we have a yellow flag in Sector 1, which I think is going to require a safety car. It is. The safety car is now out. On corner 1, we've got a 5-second time penalty for Tobalenzen, and Danger David is out of the race, which means that's played very nicely into Herman's hands. Did you see much of the incident, Skin?
Didn't, mate, unfortunately. I was just, as I normally do, just the first couple of corners on just sort of the full grid camera, and then flick to someone that's just sort of in and around that front row. But yeah, unfortunately didn't see it. Although I'm sure we'll very quickly get a report on just what happened in the Discord group. But yeah, Danger David, I said it, didn't I? Even more adversity now. Will the fact that he's going to not get any points whatsoever from this sprint race mean that it is the season over? I'll leave you to figure that one, Adam San. But yeah, safety car for the next lap and a half, maybe 2.5 laps, will leave us even more minimal racing time. But as is usually the case, rain throws up the chaos in the all assists off league.
It certainly does, and according to the grid down the bottom right, there's both a safety car at the front of BSM Sandman and at the front of the track. So ignore the one that's showing us ahead of Sandman. That does not exist. Sandman is leading this, and the safety car that is at turn 1 is the one that he will be joining. Danger David has put in the Discord. Here's the quotes for you, Skin. I'll let you respond to these how you feel necessary. He's posted, "Guys, be gentle with my AI on turn 1, please." And just 30 seconds later, after the crash, he's put, "What the actual fuck, man?" So something has obviously happened there that he's not happy with. He is out of the race, and he is now in spectator mode with us, enjoying the trip the safety car is going to take around the track in Japan. So something's gone off Do you think, I know we've had a podcast in the past about these kind of things, do you think it's a conspiracy?
Oh, well, you say we had a podcast in the past, which we did, the Big Bang conspiracy theory, but it wasn't really us that were the believers in the conspiracy, were there? So maybe we have to bring in our old co-host Gary Marsden, big F1 fan, an even bigger conspiracy theory fan. Maybe he'd be the best person to judge on whether or not there is a conspiracy here to stop Danger David challenging for the title. But unfortunately, mate, I'm not so sure on that one.
Well, either way, it means it is all an uphill battle for him. We've seen in plenty of occasions, as we see a 5-second time penalty go in favour of DDB890. He's not able to take his time penalty, which is quite surprising because I believe there was a time penalty released earlier that's actually been served by Tobelensen during the safety car. I was under the impression that you couldn't serve a time penalty under the safety car. So we'll have to look into that because Tobelensen appears to have done so. And we'll see if DDB890 in the Ferrari will follow suit when he gets back round to the pit straight. If he can go in and do the exact same thing and come out and try and get through the remainder of this race. But it does mean Tobelensen's able to now catch up to the back of the grid. The safety car bringing down the speed of the cars behind him to around about 30, 40 miles per hour, or as Skin said, a very safe, or unsafe if you will, 70 miles per hour. No, we're on 150 miles per hour going down a straight behind the safety car. There's nothing safe about that in the rainy weather, is there at all? No wonder people are picking up time penalties. So yes, Danger David now has a big uphill battle. It's all about the strategy and the approach for him taking into this race, but it does still show VSM Sandman is out in front. And I know we spoke about Danger David having that crash, but it's worth noting just how much of a lead Sandman managed to gain, how confidently and how well he started the race, actually, ahead of Herman. Herman lost position to Trugster. It was a very slow start from him, so he's maybe been saved by this safety car, because at that point he had to battle to get back ahead of the AlphaTauri, and Sandman had gone. He'd got a bit of a distance ahead of him as well, hadn't he?
Yeah, absolutely, and we were just saying before the race that it's not often that. Getting muddled up here over who is who, but yeah, it's been dominant in the past, and I'm sure, as you mentioned there, the only reason why he's not in title contention is because he's missed a couple of races. So it'd be very interesting with a full season. It'd be interesting to see where. So I'm just working my way down the grid. It'd be interesting to see what the championship looks like. You're probably bound out at the wrong time, to be honest. Assuming that we do get a full season of Sandman versus Herman
versus Danger David. That's going to be a nice little. That's going to be a nice little trio battle, and we're leaving that in the very safe hands of Martin Brundle, who's going to be taking over from us, I hear, at the end of this season. So the greatness has paved the way for the next generation, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. We've given them a low bar to get over.
Speak for yourself. I think we've done an exceptional job. Going round through Sector 2 at the moment, then still under the guidance of the safety car, and Bert Mylander making his way through in the Aston Martin, followed by an Aston Martin of Herman in third place, separated by the McLaren of VSM Sandman. We actually had a race about 3 weeks ago where no safety cars were out on track, and at one point 6 cars were all within, the first and sixth was within a second of each other for at least 4 corners. It was a nice little battle that could really have gone all which ways. So you missed an absolute blinding race there. DDB890 has pitted. He's come back out and he has served his 5-second time penalty. So just like VAR, no one knows what's going on. And we are still on board with Herman, ready for the race restarting. Maybe in just a few moments' time, we'll see if the safety car opts to go in. He is going in now, which means Sandman will slow things down. He'll be the pace setter when we get things back underway, and we can see at the bottom left of the screen making the way around these corners as Sandman's trying to hold up Herman ever so slightly. Herman is ready for pushing straight away at the McLaren, and we are back underway going up into turn 1. VSM Sandman holds the lead. Truckster's gone out onto the right hand side to get a bit of a clear vision. Of course, the rain spurting up from the back of the wheels is going to make things very difficult for the vision of the drivers behind us. Herman holds on to second place with Sandman making his way round. 4 tenths separates the two drivers at the moment, both getting a distance from Truckster in third place. A very different start start to this part of the race as it was for Truxtun when the race initially started just a few laps ago. But we stay on board with Herman going around the next couple of corners of Sector 1. He's trying to close that gap ever so slightly on VSM Sandman, but the rain is limiting just how much time he can actually close the gap by. Lap 4 of 9 is what we're on at the moment. Purple Sector 1 for Herman. I imagine it's going to be the same for Sandman as these drivers make their way through the first full lap. Touch wood, the first full lap. That's not going to be the case. We'll jump on board with you then, Skin.
Nothing happened, mate. I just wanted to see what you'd say.
What an absolute...
RS and Formula 1 Farah have collided and both gone off track and are dropping down the grid. They have dropped right down to the bottom of the grid. I think a bit of rain there might have kicked one of them out into the other, but Aggie, Formula 1 Farah, and I can't even fucking remember who I said it was now, have dropped right down to RS of 0121, who's somehow only in 13th. I went from just seeing how quickly he'd come to me to something actually happening there. But that's opened up. The third row of the grid is Herman is right behind Sandman. Just couldn't quite find that gap, trying to readjust. Herman taking the fastest lap of the race so far with a 40.5. He's now got 5 laps to try and get the lead, but very, very close between the two.
It is, and I think with Danger David not finishing this race, that could be the championship battle over. But Herman just behind Sandman, and the fact that he took the fastest lap on that first lap back racing tells you how much he's actually closed the gap onto Sandman by. 5 tenths currently separates the Aston Martin from the McLaren, but he is closing that gap further and further as the lap progresses. Just to mention that there is, of course, no DRS with the rain on at the moment. Hopefully that'll be a very different thing to what we get to see when we are back under race conditions in the full race, not the sprint race. 5 tenths still separates them, but in the case of 2 laps, or 1.5 laps should I say, as Pleasant Snake we could maybe see in the background there, just got ahead of Truxtun on that corner, took that very nicely. I don't know if we got a full vision of it. I saw it in the background. I don't know if everyone else got a full vision of it, is what I'm saying. He took it round onto the inside of Truxtun, very nicely done, gets himself up into 3rd place for the Mercedes, with Danger David down in 20th, of course, under a DNF. 3 tenths now separates Herman from VSM Sandman. The two are very close, and as you can see from the water that we're getting in front of the camera from the views that we're looking at, it's much tougher for Herman to be able to see what's going on with VSM Sandman just ahead of him. But in the case, and this is what I was saying to you, Skin, in the case of a lap and a half...
Very wide there, sorry.
No, it's all right, I'm on board with him.
But I think, Sandman has not really lost any time there, but did go very wide, went off track. Possibly an exceeding track limits could be looked at, but we know that's not how it works in this game. So still has a lead. Tell you what, it would be very interesting if we had a dry track and DRS, wouldn't it? Because Herman is getting right behind Sandman on them straights, but Sandman, great defending going into the corners, is not giving Herman a gap to be able to get through. So I think DRS would be that potential difference maker, but we are in heavy rain, not quite heavy enough to require wet tyres. We are on the intermediates, but with about 4 laps to go, through 3 3/4, shall we say, Sandman has still around a 4/10 lead, which it has been for the majority of the time since the safety car went in. Up and down the track, there's not really anyone within the driver in front. Skid Solo down in 14th is the closest to the driver in front, 3 tenths behind Racing Wheel in 13th. But other than that, the main attraction at the minute is Sandman goes wide, and again Herman having to take that hairpin very tight to try and find that gap. It's very hard to get your track round on that line in the best of conditions, but considering the weather, that was a very tough job. But Sandman, this last lap and a half or so, Aggie, is potentially going to open the door for Herman to get through. Herman just needs to make sure that he's ready to take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, he's finding it very difficult, isn't he? Going wide on a couple of these corners, we've seen it. And Herman's having to now kind of like lay off Sandman a little bit. In the dry weather, he'd be able to push and be a bit more aggressive with the overtake, but I think in the wet weather it makes it tougher to do that, because when a driver comes spinning off or struggles ever so slightly, if you're so close behind them, it could make it very, very difficult that it could cause a collision for you or the other driver. We do have a virtual safety car out there at the moment. I believe that is for Truxtun, who's on his way back down the grid. He's been overtaken by Toxic CZ10. What I do want to put on your radar is up until until just a few moments ago when Pleasant Snakes somehow managed to gain 2 laps under the 2 seconds under the VSC. In the 2 laps that we've seen since the safety car went in, Herman and Sandman, as close as they are to each other, have gained nearly a 6-second lead over the Mercedes of Pleasant Snakes. So they are progressing very quickly ahead of the rest of the pack, and I think it's very similar to what we're actually going to see. And I know we mentioned how Danger David, if he gets a good win in the race and you know, the fastest lap as well, could actually upset, you know, what Herman's created so far this season and take the Drivers' Championship. I think by the time he gets towards 3rd place, it's already game, set and match, and I think Sandman and Herman will just be too far ahead. Even if Herman does go into 1st place, you know, and takes the win away from Sandman, I think that still Sandman's got enough about him to be so far ahead of 3rd place, do you think?
Yeah, they have to agree, mate. Have to agree, and that right there shows why Sandman has won this championship 3 times in a row. Why Herman is coming on his first season or first full season and is looking set to win the championship. I think that, you know, we always call Sandman and Herman, or say always, we've always called Sandman sort of number 1. I think now we've got to consider Sandman and Herman 1A and 1B. You know, and take your pick on which is which, and I think Danger David is just that slight tier below. The only reason I say that is that Sandman very rarely outside that top 2, maybe 3. Herman, in the time that he's been on it, very rarely outside that top 2. Danger David, as I said earlier, and has been the case in pretty much every single race in which we've commentated on, it's been fantastic qualifying performance, it's been a fantastic finishing position, but a lot of the time he's dropping down early and then spending the rest of that time climbing back up the track instead of being in and amongst that front 2 battling for that top position. So I think Danger David, if he wants to get onto that level of Sandman and Herman that we know, based on what we've seen in the 3 seasons we've commentated on this league, he's more than capable of, he's got to start avoiding those sort of first 2 corner collisions, because they're costing him. Because like I said, instead of having that 6-second gap from the rest, he's fighting for, you know, which podium spot he's going to get in and amongst a Sandman and a Herman. He's too busy trying to fight to claim that last podium spot, and we know he's better than that based on what he's delivered when he's managed to avoid those incidents early on.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with what you say. I just think it's the consistency from Danger David. You know, you say what you said about Herman and about Sandman. I think the reason why he's always one of the front runners is he's never absent. He doesn't miss a race. This season, Herman's missed maybe 1, if that. I think he's actually finished every race this season, but last season, you know, he couldn't race every race. Danger David went ahead and won the championship. Sandman, I think he's missed more races than he's been at this season, so it's kind of kept him out a little bit, but you know he's always going to be there or thereabouts. I think those 3 are kind of like the front runners for this league. As much as I agree with you that Sandman and Herman are maybe just a little bit further ahead that class above, I would like to say Pleasant Snake, Ivor, Racing World, they've all come into it over the last couple of races as well. They've really started to be in and amongst that leading pack with Danger David and be a bit more competitive at the front side of the grid. So, you know, this league's really picking up in terms of talent. You've got more and more that are only improving. You've got, of course, a couple that are out there for the championship, but there's a lot of consistency in terms of appearances from people, isn't there? It's a great bunch of lads that we've known, obviously, through the Discord chat, and it's kept people interested in coming back and racing, hasn't it? Even if it is a case of, you know, you're finishing at the back of the grid. Yeah,
definitely, mate. Yeah, it's been a phenomenal league, and I think it's unfortunate. I know we always joke about our skills and our use of assists and everything else like that, but it's a shame not to be able to take part in a league of this calibre. You know, we've never... Of course, there's been the odd incident in terms of crashes and things like that. It's always going to be the case. It's part and parcel with a game like this, but, you know, it's a really well-run league. Everything's fair. You see, like, the incident sort of chats within the Discord where you can report crashes if someone in particular is at fault. Never malicious, but again, shit happens. So, yeah. Obviously, I'm sure we'll get into it as Quincy gets a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. He's gone rogue tonight in Japan, but yeah, Adam San, I'm sure we will get into it towards the back end of the race. As again, Sandman goes wide, opens the door, but Herman has to put the brakes on to avoid a collision there. Sandman rejoins the chat, but again, Adam Sand for the third time, the third attempt. I'm sure we'll get into it on the back end of the race, but yeah, what a brilliantly run league. A credit to Racing Wheel and Quincy, who I know helps out quite a bit as well, and as you said, brought us into the league to commentate on. As there's a collision between Herman and Sandman. Herman has hit the back of Sandman, and they've both spun a little bit. Herman managed to get ahead of Sandman. Not really sure where the blame was there. Is Herman being asked to give him the position back? I'm assuming so, but it did seem there like Herman maybe struggling with the braking, going into that corner with the weather. Just caught the rear wing of Sandman and caused a spin, but no change to the position there as Herman gives the position back, whether that's through him realising that was his fault or being ordered to from the stewards. I'm sure we'll find out, but yeah. That's our last sprint race, Aggie. Sandman gets the win, Herman second, Pleasant Snake in third, T-Bram fourth, Frankie fifth, Truckster sixth, Toxic seventh, Tarkangino eighth, RS 0121 in ninth, and Quincy in 10th, completing that top 10. Verdugo, Sir Ebo and A Danger Day with the three drivers that don't finish that. And we've now got a 50% race to finish off our time as commentators, Aggie Stan, and yeah. I'll try again to say it properly without incident or interruption, but a massive credit to everyone involved in the league. It's been an absolute pleasure, and let's go out and commentate on a high, shall we?
We certainly will, and if that we've just seen at the final point of the sprint race is anything to go by, we've got a lot of desire and a lot of fight from Herman and from Sandman. Just to mention, in the Discord, Herman has just put in that he apologised to Sandman for the incident that happened. He felt he caught the back of him, and therefore it caused the two of them to spin. Thankfully, it still kept them both in first and second place, respectively, but to avoid any further incident, Herman moved to the side of his own accord and allowed Sandman to go back through and take first position back away from him. So credit to Herman there for his sportsmanship, and credit to Sandman for an excellent defensive strategy from him, and the race nonetheless. So it is going to be Sandman on pole position, Herman in second, Pleasant Snake in third. I said I fancied him to get third place, didn't I?
You did, mate. Fair play to you. Fair play. But there's the points. Are these points legit, or are they manually inputted based on the league point structure?
Manually inputted based upon the league's point structure. I think everybody gets points for a sprint race. It's just how many points you do get and how that impacts other drivers. But I do think that is it for the Drivers' Championship and for the Constructors' Championship. So, as it has been on a couple of occasions, we will get to see Sandman and we'll get to see Herman at the front. The rain has gone, which means it is going to be dry weather strategies. You start on your soft, medium or hard tyres throughout the course of this race. You are to finish on a soft, hard or medium tyre, but it cannot be the same one that you started on. You've got to change your tyres throughout the course of this race. If the rain does fall, you will be required to change onto intermediates or wets. It won't be a you have to, but it'll be a preference, because otherwise it will be sheer chaos. As we know, Skin, from you playing on soft tyres in wet weather in Monaco on a couple of occasions previously, just because you wanted to see what would happen.
Can you blame me?
Well, you didn't make it round to the point that you normally park up on because of how bad it were. But yeah, no, I don't blame you at all. I mean, if you're not going to finish the race anyway, why even try?
Yeah.
But there we go. Who's going to win this race then? Have you still got it down as Herman's going to get past Sandman? I mean, we know Herman has got pace, but Sandman was fantastic defensively there.
He was, but as I mentioned, I think the rain and the lack of DRS played into Sandman's hands there. So now we should, fingers crossed, have a completely dry race, and obviously more laps as well. I'll take Herman getting the lead at some point and ending with a rather comfortable win in Japan. Aggie-san, what about you, mate? Are you going with Sandman, Herman, or have you got a wild card to throw into the mix?
As a McLaren fan, I am going to have to back Sandman. I mean, I had his back a little bit, didn't I, when he was at Ferrari, but now he's at McLaren. There's absolutely no reason why I shouldn't back him. I think Herman is going to get second place, and I think, I'm going to be honest, I think the way this race is going to finish is the exact same way as the race is going to start, and that is with Pleasant Snake in third place. I mentioned about the pace that he seemed to have picked up. I think it could have been a case if the Mercedes are alongside each other, him and Danger David could have maybe had a bit of a strategy and a talk to each other about what their decision was going to be, whether they were going to switch anything about, but they didn't. It's going to be very, very close, I think, but I think Pleasant Snake is going to take third place. It'll be close between him and fourth. I think Sandman and Herman by lap 3 will already be about 5 seconds ahead and not worth worrying about at that point. We have got a few breaks in play just while people are sorting out strategies and that, so we're not going to be set to go just yet. So I will ask you, if there's going to be a safety car, this is something that seems to have come about on a lot of prediction leagues lately. If there's going to be a safety car, what lap do you think it's going to be?
1.
Really? You think it's going to be first corner again?
I think so, yeah.
Wow.
Just like I was saying in qualifying, just that middle part of sector 1 is tough. And yeah, there's going to be people that will be making a push. There's going to be people that may be a touch more aggressive with being the last race of the season, so I can foresee an incident or two that would require the safety car coming out. Yeah,
with plenty of cars around you and a lot of congestion, I guess that's always going to be one of those things, isn't it? Where, you know, during the S's that you get, like you've got at Silverstone, like you've got at Mexico, I think it is as well, there's one there, isn't there? So when you've got them S's, any sort of congestion means you've got to put the brakes on, but also not put the brakes on, and it could mean a lot of chaos at that point as well. I do think we are almost ready for getting this race underway for us, just waiting for a couple of players to ready up, and then we are going to be good to go. Strategies. We talk about this a lot. We say let's start on softs because we can switch to mediums when the safety car comes out. If there's anything I've learned about strategies, it's that it's not always interesting to make that rash decision. We can see from the side of some of these cars, a lot are on mediums, but there are a couple of mixed strategies that are going on, so we'll quickly jump onto the tyres as we are underway for race number 8 of 8 of season 12 of the All Assist Soft League. It is Sandman out in front at the moment. It's T-Bran and Pleasant Snake have a battle for third place. Round the first corner, Sandman manages to hold on to first position with Herman just following behind. 3/10 separates the two cars there as T-Bran manages to keep third place ahead of Pleasant Snake. Going into turns 3 and 4, through the S as they go at the moment, then with Sandman out in front. 3/10 still the difference. T-Bran in third place, being closed the gap by Pleasant Snake as we jump on board with him in the Mercedes at the moment as the two are battling for the last podium spot. Frankie just behind him on the medium tyres as well. We'll jump back on board with Herman, who's 2/10 behind VSM Salmon. If it wasn't for the fact that he just had to go slow into that corner, I think if he was a bit more aggressive, could maybe have taken first place away from the McLaren, but Sandman still with defensive work left to do. We've got a yellow flag in sector 2 as DDB890 in the Ferrari has gone backwards, as has Tobalenton, and Danger David falls down to 18th place as well. We stay on board with Herman, who's now 5/10 behind VSM Sandman, and VSM Sandman is quite far out already. 7/10 separates T-Bran from Herman at the moment, and just as I say that, Herman closes the gap massively on Sandman into that corner. He might have a bit of momentum going onto this straight as well. If he can go up onto the inside into the next corner, we might have a new race leader, but he's healed just before we get to that corner. Sandman keeps out in first place at the moment, going around the next couple of corners. Herman has a look on the inside again, tries to go onto the outside for this corner, nearly collides with the McLaren as Sandman manages to keep first place, but T-Bran's having a look now from third place if he can get something and upset the rhythm of the Aston Martin and the McLaren going on to the pit straight. First lap completed. Sandman out in first place, 1 minute 33 the time to beat now with the fastest lap of the race. It's still with VSM Sandman out in first place at the moment. Herman is closing that gap as Veriduco takes a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting, and we're going to stay on board with Sandman at the moment. We've got a 3-car race for first place as Veriduco now for speeding in the pit lane gets a 5-second time penalty as he feels the need to pit at the end of lap 1. 27 laps is the entirety of this race. We're on lap number 2, and it is still Sandman out in first place, but he is under heavy pressure from the Aston Martin of Herman, keeping that gap very, very close. 1.1 seconds separates Pleasant Snake from the Alfa Romeo of T-Bran. I would nearly said AlphaTauri for a moment. As up onto the inside goes Herman, very close between him and Sandman. Sandman forced onto the outside into the next corner. If he can stay alongside him, we'll have the inside line with a chance to take first place back. The McLaren goes up onto the inside. It looks like Herman might just keep that position. He does. Herman, the new race leader. Still 1/10 separates the two, and T-Bran having a look at the potential of getting past Sandman and causing more harm for the McLaren driver, who could end up finishing these next couple of corners in third place. Pleasant Snake closing that gap ever so slightly as well. he's got potential to battle for a podium finish himself. It is Herman, though, now that is the race leader, and Sandman, still just behind him, isn't finished battling at the moment. Herman on the faster soft tyres, two different strategies for the front two drivers of this race. T-Bran on the soft tyres might have a chance to go up the inside of Sandman, but that corner closes too quickly for him, and he is forced to go a little bit further back, and it costs him a couple of tenths of a second. Herman now 1:30.8 sets the fastest lap of the race. It is still Herman out in first place with Sandman in second. T-Bran 3 tenths behind Sandman, who's 3 tenths behind Herman at the moment, and those three drivers still have plenty to be fighting for over the next couple of laps, and touch wood, no incidents. This does continue for the next at least 25 laps where we get to see it with the checkered flag, but it is Sandman in second place, T-Bran in third. Pleasant Snake now down to 8 tenths behind third place. He's now within DRS, which should be opening up at the end of this lap. There's no wet weather at the moment, which means there's no reason to believe that DRS will not be opened, and it gives an extra 10 miles per hour for these drivers making their way through the track. But we stay on board with Sandman at the moment, who is starting to lose a little bit of ground on Herman. 7 tenths the difference as the yellow flag comes out in sector 2. It doesn't look like it's anything serious. It's gone almost as quick as it's appeared. 1.3 seconds now separates T-Bran from VSM Sandman, and the front two are now starting to get a bit of a lead of the other drivers as well. I think it allowed T-Bran to be a bit more competitive in that battle for first place, whilst VSM Sandman was holding up the pace of Herman in his defensive duties to try and stop Herman from taking first place away from him. 6 tenths still separates the two. Pleasant Snake now 3 tenths behind T-Bran. Maybe it is just the fact that T-Bran is going backwards, so we'll jump on board for the moment with Pleasant Snake, who opening up into the next lap will have DRS to assist him. I think it's around about halfway through the track that DRS actually becomes apparent and enabled, and the pit straight, which he is going to have it for now, opens up DRS, gives himself that extra 10 miles per hour on the pit straight. Pleasant Snake putting under pressure T-Bran. Is he going to have enough track? Goes up onto the inside and takes third place back also momentarily as T-Bran's forced onto the outside. Pleasant Snake continues through into third place, takes third place back, but at what cost? He's now 2 seconds behind VSM Sandman, who's in second place. And the fight is back on for Pleasant Snake to try and help his teammate of Danger David, who is down in 18th place at the moment. He's had to pit already. He's onto the soft tyres, so a big ask for him to get himself back up into the points, and even more so onto a podium place. 2.2 seconds now separates Pleasant Snake in third place from VSM Sandman in second, who is 6 tenths behind Herman. So let's jump on board with Sandman as this battle for first place does continue and has potential of heating up as we get through to the next DRS zone in just a couple of corners time. 4 laps in, it's Herman in first place, Sandman second, Pleasant Snake third, and we are as you started, Skin.
We absolutely are, mate. Are you okay? Do you need a minute? Do you want me to go through some interesting facts to fill the time to allow you to rest your voice there? That was a little bit fucking crazy, wasn't it? But yeah, Herman is now taking the lead. It's up to Sandman to try and stick within DRS and give himself a chance at regaining that in the next lap or two, but we will see. It'll be interesting to see what the pit strategies are for both drivers, with them being on different tyres. Sandman on mediums, Herman on soft, so you would assume some different strategies throughout the next few races. Sandman has DRS and is going to make that attempt now as he gained second place. Herman has the inside line though and has managed to get it back, but good racing, good driving. Herman regains it. Tell you what, it's going to be a battle for the ages if these can get a full season of these pairs going head to head, won't it?
Certainly will, mate. Yeah, we say about how these two drivers are a little bit further ahead of the others in this league at the moment, and they're proving that at the minute, still keeping that 2.2 seconds difference between them and Pleasant Snake, but nonetheless 4 tenths separates the two, and that is whilst Herman is on the softer, naturally quicker tyres. So it all depends on what strategy he's going for, and if the longevity that VSM Sandman has in the medium tyres will be able to outweigh the speed that Herman's got the advantage in this opening section of the race. Although at the moment those soft tyres are supposed to be quicker, as it stands he doesn't seem to be having that pace that he maybe hoped for, and we could see his title winning season finish with him not on the top step of the podium, as VSM Sandman is 4 tenths behind. We're going around the last couple of corners onto the pit straight, and the only, as far as I'm aware, the only DRS zone that we have in Japan, if I'm not mistaken, and I think it is on the pit straight. Yeah, I thought so. So 5/10 separates the two, and he's going to have DRS now going on to the pit straight. Last time he managed to go up onto the outside and gain the position back of Herman. Is that going to be the same situation now as Herman goes onto the outside this time to stop VSM Sandman from taking the outside line? Not enough track for Sandman to be able to gain that position, but he's still gained an advantage. 3/10 to be precise. He's now closer to Herman and with another opportunity to battle and take that position away from him. There's not too many battles going on elsewhere in the grid. Pleasant Snake is in third place, 9/10 ahead of T-Bran, who's in fourth, 2.8 seconds, however, behind VSM Sandman. In second, Skid Solo moves up into 11th place, getting the overtake on Peter Caspi in the Ferrari, who's fallen down to 12th place as a result. DDB890, his teammate, down in 17th place, and since VSM Sandman was the driver for Ferrari, they've not quite seen that same sort of glory. It's like the Ferraris that we remember from the days of Alonso and Massa. There's not really been that same sort of success story for them either, as we stay on board with VSM Sandman in second place at the moment. Half a second separates him from the Aston Martin of Herman, making his way around in medium tyres. I'm hoping this isn't a bluff, but Skin, I'm coming across to you now.
I think I'm glitching, mate, because Sandman was flying off at track, and then I went, oh, and then he were back on track again, so I think I just glitched there, mate. But I'm streaming, so it's there for all to see. Lap 6, go back and watch it, mate. Sandman was verging towards a wall and being out of the race, and then all of a sudden was absolutely fine. So maybe some slight connection issues on my side, causing drama that had never even existed and wasn't there. So, yeah, ignore me on that one. That is a genuine mistake.
Well, something we've never done before on our coverage of the All Assist Soft League, so why not start now? And we've not actually done it during the time that England are playing a European qualifiers game, and England are currently trailing by 1-0 away from home against Macedonia. So
it was a Rico Lewis gave away a penalty. Shouldn't have been a penalty. Pickford saved the pen, and the rebound unfortunately fell right to the penalty taker, who hit it into an empty net. But very good penalty save from Pickford. Unfortunately, it just went back into play. So yeah, unfortunate. But they're already qualified. Who cares really?
Yeah, and I'm not going to fall into the same trap. So regardless of what you say, I will not be posting messages every single day, as the optimistic fan that I can be sometimes, saying that it's coming home, because I am not in that sort of trap anymore. 4/10 separates VSM Sandman on the track in Japan, behind Herman, who is out in first place at the moment. But that gap to third place is now up to a total of 4 seconds. So it's all about the strategy, and when you start to consider going in for those pit stops, as VSM Sandman's on the medium tyres, Herman is on the soft. Would you say, how long do you think it's going to be before Herman has to consider bringing in those soft tyres and maybe going for the mediums or the hards? 7 laps in at the moment.
I think another 2 or 3 laps, that tends to be sort of where or whereabouts to go, but it'd be interesting to see what kind of approach Herman wants to take. I suppose the very fortunate position he's in is that he doesn't have to be taking risks to try and win the championship. We know he's got a comfortable lead. Danger David down in 17th, who's struggling to climb up the grid, 12 seconds behind 16th. So really, we've got to say that the championship is over at this point. Of course, anything can happen over the next 20 or so laps, but Herman doesn't have to take any risks. I'm sure he'll be mindful of the fact that if he does pit relatively soon, he's then going to be potentially stuck in traffic, which does he want? Again, I don't think he'll be too bothered, but yeah. Mad. It seems every time I go on Sandman, it glitches and he's flying off track and then he's fine. Thought we nearly had another one there. But yeah, in terms of pitting, I'd say another 2 laps or so. Get onto the mediums, see out the race on that. But again, I'm sure I'll have half an eye on the rest of the track pitting, so as to try and avoid getting stuck in the middle of the grid, and allowing Sandman to increase the lead and have a very good pit strategy and come out ahead, because you've got to assume that someone will pit later in the race than Herman will. Yeah,
unless there's damage, it's certainly the way you'd go with those medium tyres. But then how much of a gap would Pleasant Snake close? You think if Herman does pit, he could come out behind Pleasant Snake, and at that point, because you've got to pit sooner, he's stuck behind somebody on medium tyres that doesn't have that pace. Does that then give an advantage to Sandman, if he can't get past Pleasant Snake and the defending's there? There's plenty of things to take into account from this, and if there's only one thing I can do about this game, if it's not commentate, it's certainly master the strategies, as we know, Skin, from the times that we've...
I thought you were going for a rhyme there, mate, and my brain went somewhere else then very quickly.
Right, okay.
I
We'll
thought
stay
you
on.
were. I thought you were chucking out a rhyme, mate. You said you might not be able to commentate, but you can certainly master. And my brain went ding,
Right.
ding, ding. But, I'll
Of
leave
course
you
it
with that
did.
one.
Of course it did. Nearly outside of DRS zone now, actually, is VSM Sandman. So those soft tyres starting to come into their own for Herman. He's starting to gain a bit more of a lead on Sandman, but still a fair bit of this track to go before we get to the DRS detection zone, just a couple of corners away from the pit straight. 9/10, and now there's the second, the full second that separates the two drivers. Could make this an uphill battle for VSM Sandman to keep within the distance of DRS. He keeps on flirting underneath the 1 second mark, but at the moment it is 1.051 that separates the two, which means the closest we've got to anybody overtaking is down in 9th place with Tarkangino, so that's who I'm going to jump on board with at the moment. As we can see him making his way through the second sector, 6/10 separates him from Trugster, and it's amazing that at this point of the race, that is the only distance that we've got, other than Sandman to Herman, that is under 1 second. So a lot of drivers getting a good distance from each other. Nothing clumsy, nothing risky at the moment as Formula 1 Farah now gets within the DRS zone of Tarkangino. Still 9/10 separates Herman from VSM Sandman, and very soon is where I expect us to start seeing some of these drivers going in for pit stops. We have seen Quincy, Tobalenzen, Danger David, Veriduco all go into the pits at an early stage, including then Sir Ibo, I believe Sir Ibo, DDB890, Racing Wheel, Kwan, Peter Caspi and Skid Solo have all boxed as well. I'm just going to jump on to checking that actually for the stops. No, they haven't, so I'm not quite sure why their tyres have only lasted 8 laps where everyone else's has lasted 9. So I'll try and figure that one out at some point. But at the moment, we've got Tarkangino defending from Formula 1 Farah, the Alpine in 9th place. Formula 1 Farah 3/10 just behind him. Will have DRS if he can keep this distance going round towards the pit straight. But Formula 1 Farah in the Williams is in 10th place at the moment. He opens up the overtake to try and help defending, does Tarkangino in the Alpine. And it'll keep him just ahead of the Williams for now as we watch them going through and under the bridge. Tarkangino still with 9th place. Quan takes a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. And still, this is the closest we've got to an overtake. And there's not even much of an overtaking action going on at the moment. Tarkangino's just strolling his way around. And Formula 1 Farah's, he's getting closer, but then losing that bit of an advantage he makes when he's going through the corners. He's struggling with some of these corners. Slow in and quick out is what Tarkangino's doing, and Formula 1 Forest just using the pace that he's getting on those straights to try and keep it close. So 6/10 is now the difference, but when it comes up to some corners which requires slowing down, the advantage is certainly with the defending driver at this moment. As Frankie 1811 in 7th place takes a 3-second time penalty, and we have our first pit stop from the front, and that is that of Tibran, who goes in from 6th place. He's now down into 10th as more cars start to make their way past him, and he will come out on medium tyres after pitting from those softs. Comes out in 11th place. So we'll jump on board with VSM Sandman. We've seen our first pit from the soft tyres. We've still got Herman, RS0121, Trugster, Formula 1 Farah and Quan all left to pit on those soft tyres that they started with. Who do you think blinks first, Skin?
It's got to be Herman, hasn't it, surely?
Yeah, looking at the time, actually, the interval here, you can see Sandman's now 6/10 behind Herman, so he's starting to gain a little bit. So maybe that speed and that optimum pressure that Herman had on his tyres is gone, and now they're just starting to show the signs of wear and tear. And of course, this is where the longevity of those medium tyres can really impact and support VSM Sandman in these overtaking battles. He's back into DRS zone, and it's a bit of a defensive work for Herman now in the Aston Martin making his way round. And it is going to be DRS for VSM Sandman going round onto the pit straight. And at what point does Herman go into the pits? He's going to go in now, which means VSM Sandman will come out in first place and continue his way around with DRS assistance and an open track ahead of him. So we'll see where Herman comes out. I assume it would be around about 5th, maybe even 6th place, depending on the pace of Frankie 1811. So we'll jump off board with VSM Sandman as Herman is now making his way out on those medium tyres that should see him through to the end of the race. And he is currently in 5th place. RS pitting means he's fallen to 6th under Tarkangino behind him. So the worst thing that could happen for Herman now is whilst VSM Sandman's still got 2 or 3 laps in his advantage, is being caught up in traffic and is behind Tarkangino, who we've just seen going up against Formula 1 further down the track. Isn't that bad at defending, really, is he?
No, not at fucking all, mate. Again, if I had, I'd say about 20% of the skill that some of these lads have, I'd be putting much more time into this game. But unfortunately not. But again, a credit to them, a credit to the hours they put in, the practice they put in. As Herman, already out the pit, has overtaken Tarkangino to climb up into 5th place. He's come out of the pits hot, and he's not looking to coast. He's not looking to be comfortable. He's looking to make sure that Sandman doesn't pit and get out ahead of him. Aggressive driving from Herman, despite the fact that it's not really needed. He can take a comfortable win at this point, but he's not resting on his laurels. He wants to finish the season strong. So, great start to the rest of the race for Herman.
I can't believe we've just said, I've just seen Sandman's pitted. Here we go. Yeah, I'll stay on board with Herman if you want to jump on board with Sandman or Herman, I guess. He's coming round onto the final couple of corners, onto the pit straights.
He's gone on to wets.
Yeah. He's gone into hard tyres. He's jumped onto hard tyres. Wow.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. He had the pace as well.
Will last around, 14, 15 laps?
No, and I think Herman's actually going to have a bit more of an advantage over this. I think Tarkangino might even get through. No, he doesn't. VSM Sandman keeps 2nd place, but 2 seconds is what Herman's gained there. Man, that's bizarre from Sandman. He's dropped in on those medium tyres and come out 2.5 seconds further behind on hard tyres for 14 laps. I don't think he needed to pit those medium tyres, though. I think he could have maybe gone another couple of laps on them.
Yeah, and then that would have allowed him to go on to softs. Interesting decision, and again, we know there's no title implications here, so it doesn't matter too much, I suppose. But if it was, a race to win the championship, I do wonder if the decision of when to pit and what tyres to go on might have been different.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because there's plenty of different strategies you can approach in dry weather, and I think we're just on board with RS0121, who goes past Skid Solo. He's got a bit of defending there to do, but I think he's going to have the position. He's going to get the position ahead of Skid Solo, who falls into 6th place. Those fresher medium tyres working to the advantage of the Red Bull of RS0121, who makes his way up into 5th place. Yeah, the strategy has kind of blown my mind a little bit. He's gone now to 3.5 seconds behind him. Tarkangino is still quite close, but of course still has to pit. I think that's the race over, isn't it? Barring an incident now that might bring the two back together, the decision to go onto the hard tyres, we've seen Sandman in the past make a couple of decisions that could be considered relatively questionable regarding strategy changes, and I think this might just have to go down as another one, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And look, how often, again, Herman's not been in a league for a very long time, but how often have we seen him make a mistake? I'd argue that number is 0. So right at this moment in time, that lead going from 2.1 seconds to 3.3 seconds in just a lap, I can't see anything other than a Herman win. I did call it, I did predict it, but we have got pretty much half of the race to go, where, as we know, as always, anything can and could happen, especially if that rain starts to creep in. We know how often we've thought it's been comfortable and just a case of seeing the race through, and then all of a sudden the rain starts to fall and chaos ensues, and that could happen again, yet again today, couldn't it, Aggie-san?
It could, and I'm on board with RSO121, who's just behind Pleasant Snake at the moment. He hasn't finished his overtaking battles. He's got Pleasant Snake just in front of him. He's got Tarkangino in 3rd place, who still needs to pit. This could actually be a tactical masterclass from RSO121 and the Red Bull if he's to get himself into a top 3 position here, because he's battled his way up this field. He's just got past T-Bran. He's making his way through on these new medium tyres. I think I've got to put the advantage to him to get in 3rd place here. He's closed this gap on Pleasant Snake phenomenally well, who's out on new hard tyres as well. He's within DRS heading onto the pit straight. I think he's very close and could even maybe get the advantage over Tarkangino in 3rd place, who I think might have to pit momentarily. He hasn't done just yet, but there's also DRS there for Pleasant Snake. Opened up also for RSO121. We see Pleasant Snake getting past Tarkangino. RSO121's going to go up onto the inside, not going to have enough track to do so. He's going to have to sit in 5th place, but he's going to need to get past Tarkangino quickly, as Pleasant Snake has plenty of open track ahead of him. Goes on to the outside this time, gets past the Alpine of Tarkangino, who continues around on those 14-lap-old medium tyres. RS now out on the new medium tyres, 3 laps old. I think that should see him through until the end of the race. I don't think he's going to need to pit again onto hard tyres. So unless Sandman may have felt that the soft tyres, or the medium tyres, sorry, weren't going to last much longer, if that was the case, Herman may have pitted too soon to go into those medium tyres, and they might not last him till the end of the race. So it could still work out in Sandman's favour, I guess. But RS0121 following Pleasant Snake past Tarkangino in the battle for third place. There's now 9 tenths separating the two drivers, and that is the closest on-field battle we've got, other than Racing Wheel down in 16th place, which is no longer even a battle anymore. So we'll stay on board with RS0121. 8 tenths separates them from Pleasant Snake and the Mercedes in third place. As it stands at the moment, that gap again still closing. 7 tenths now the difference, down to 6 tenths, and he is constantly getting closer, and he's just gone purple in sector 2 as well. In the last lap he went purple in sector 3. He's going to have DRS on Pleasant Snake. He's a man on a mission at the moment in this Red Bull to take a podium position away from the Mercedes. He's opened up DRS onto the pit straight. He goes. That gap is getting shorter and shorter, but I don't think 8 tenths is going to be enough for him to be able to get past him on this occasion. He keeps 4th place at the moment. Pleasant Snake continues in 3rd, and amidst all that, he didn't get the fastest lap either. He just missed out on that despite a purple sector 2. So the momentum's following him around as we jump on board now with Formula 1 Farah down in 9th place in the Williams. He's getting closer to Frankie 1811 in the battle for 8th place, and I think that is the closest that we've got going on at the moment, Skin.
Yeah, the track does seem to have spread out a little bit now, and this is where usually we start to comment as T-Brand moves up into 5th place, overtaking Tarkangino. Yeah, this is usually where we start to get a little bit comfortable, assume that no other positions will change, and then all of a sudden there's a thunderstorm, and like I said, all pit stops and pit strategies start to happen and change and all this kind of stuff. So I'm going to get comfortable, and I'm going to assume absolutely nothing's going to happen over the next 11 or so laps, and that usually means that we're about to see some chaos. But I'll let you try and theorise or predict what that chaos might be exactly.
It's difficult to predict in the unpredictable all-assists off league just what chaos will ensue. We've got 11 laps left to go of this 27-lap race. We'll jump back on board with RS0121, who's 8 tenths behind Pleasant Snake in the Mercedes at the moment. Making his way onto the pit straight. We'll have DRS again. He'll open this up, but he'll be closer than he were the last time, and that might actually help him a little bit further across the line now. In 4th place, trying to get into the podium position. He's not going to have enough again, and he's going to have to sit back in 4th place for a little bit longer once again, making his way through into Sector 1 and the S's. I think it's only a matter of time before those medium tyres reach optimum speed and he manages to get past Pleasant Snake, but he also has to be careful of the wear and tear of them. Those hard tyres will last till the end of the race, barring an incident for Pleasant Snake and for BSM Sandman. I dare say that with the pace that RS0121's going at the moment, if he gets Pleasant Snake with still 10 laps left to go, could he get Sandman, do you think?
No, I don't. Sandman's not that kind of driver where usually drivers manage to close the gap, and no, I don't think so personally.
I think it's exactly what happens with Sandman, isn't it? he was leader of this race. Herman closed the gap and got past him. We've seen in the past that drivers can close gaps on Sandman, and sometimes the strategies aren't always on point with him, and maybe that's his downfall. Danger David has made his way up from 20th place, of course, after crashing out in the sprint race, up into 14th place. So where do you think it's kind of gone wrong for him? He's not managing. In fact, I'll ask you that question in a second, where you think it's gone wrong for Danger David, as we'll stay on board with RS0121, who again has managed to gain time on what he had at this point in the last lap, and he's opened up DRS again on Pleasant Snake, biding his time, goes up onto the inside line and drags onto the outside, ready to take the corner, and again can't quite get past Pleasant Snake, but he's still within a couple of laps of overtaking distance. So I'll ask you now where you feel it might have gone wrong for Danger David, who's down in 14th place.
I'm not really sure. I'll be honest, not spent too much time on board with him this evening, just because he's not really been in and amongst it. It started from the back, as we know. Managed to climb up to 14th, and look, with the way he's going, could be looking at a top 10 finish by the time the race over. But yeah, not really managed to get going this race compared to other times where he's been towards the back of the grid. Excuse me. And just to say that, he sets the fastest lap. So just a little reminder there of what he is capable of. He's on soft tyres, he's setting fastest lap. So who knows, maybe he could make a push to get into a top 5 in these final 10 or so laps, but we will soon see. He's 14th at the minute. Make a mental note, bookmark it, lap 18. We'll see where he ends up. But I just think it's just one of them where there's not been any safety cars, there's not been anyone crash out. We've only had the one incident in terms of a crash or contact, so that of course always makes it harder when no one's sort of dropping back or crashing out or bringing the cars back together through a safety car. So it's always going to make his job harder, but we know what he's like. He'll keep ticking along, and look, if he keeps up the pace that he's just set there, could find himself with at least a top 10 finish by the time the race is over.
There we go, in 4th place at the moment, still now on DRS with a chance to get past Pleasant Snake, and he's just not managing to get past him on that part of the track, and that's where the only part of the track where DRS is. So you might be absolutely right, they both closed the gap a little bit on Sandman actually. It's now just 7 seconds that separates the two, so if they continue at this pace they could both actually within reason catch up with VSM Sandman, and there's reason to believe that with Sandman just out in the oblivion really at the moment, isn't it? Just taking it steady. You don't need to push too much because you're not going to catch Herman, but then you don't really think about the pace that you're going, do you? And sometimes you lose a bit of time on that. So, there's a worry from both sides, but 2/10 separates at the moment as RS0121 looks onto the outside, might switch onto the inside line, stays onto the outside for this corner though, isn't going to get past Pleasant Snake on this corner either, and now has less than half a second as the difference going round through the long right-handed corner before a quick left that goes back on yourself and takes you all the way through to the final couple of corners of this lap. This, for me, could easily be the RS zone. Around about here, if you start it there, get the RS open, it's only a little bit of a left-handed corner. You could be absolutely fine to fly down this bit and then stop DRS just at the end of this corner before you take that left. Although in saying that, you can fly around this corner anyway, can't you, even with DRS, and I think maybe the pace would push you off. So stop it just before that corner comes in. Could easily be a second DRS zone in Japan. Not the case, but still RS0121 will have DRS going on to the pit straight up against Pleasant Snake at the moment. That distance to VSM Sandman is now 6.5 seconds. They've gained half a second in the last lap. Now, that's not necessarily saying that Pleasant Snake and RS0121 are going quicker. That might even signal that Sandman's going slower. So I'm going to momentarily just jump on board with him, see if he seems to be slowing down ever so slightly, see if there's anything wrong with the car that might indicate why he's now fallen an extra 2 seconds behind Herman. I don't know if it's for our last race he's decided to give us a present of some entertainment for a change from what's going on, as T-Brand now retires from the session. And here we go, the safety car is out, so with 7 laps left to go, T-Brand retiring might just have thrown a spanner in the works for some of these drivers. Is there a quick shot strategy change that you're going for here, Skin?
I don't know. The obvious one, I suppose, is if I'm Sandman, I'm getting onto softs. But by then dropping down the grid, I'm not really sure what that does in terms of how much work you've then got to do. So it's a risk, but I think it's one I suppose he's got to take.
Yeah, we'll stay on board with him at the moment as we come round onto that area of the pit straight where Cerubo takes a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. Quincy and DDB890 and Danger David have all boxed for soft tyres, so we'll see if anybody else follows that motion. On board with VSM Sandman at the moment, we've got Herman just in front of him. As it looks at the moment, Herman is... I don't think he's going into the pits. He has, and VSM Sandman's followed suit as well. Ooh, and a couple of lockups going into the pits there as well. Almost caused an incident in the pit entry. So, everybody going in, I'm assuming for those soft tyres, we might actually get a little bit more racing between Sandman and Herman. This competition for top step of the podium is not over yet. Still fancy Herman to walk out winner?
Yeah, I've got to, mate. He's been exceptional. Pitted onto softs. A lot of others have as well. So yeah, nobody's going to have a tyre advantage over him now. But how can I go against him at this point?
It's going to be tough, because I don't think he's going to have that same advantage based upon what looks to be going on. I know he's normally the one that gets to stand behind the safety car and he's the pace setter to get things back underway, but this game seems to have a very Jekyll and Hyde moment where sometimes the cars that haven't yet, they don't unlap themselves, they will stand behind the safety car, won't they? And that could prove a bit of an issue. So we'll see just what the safety car decides to do. I think it's letting some of those cars by It is, which means Herman is now the closest, and he will be the pace setter when things get back underway for us. So Herman and VSM Sandman is the only change of the top three that we've seen. What do you think that does to the momentum that RS0121 had, and the advantage of those medium tyres up against the harder tyres of Pleasant Snake?
I think there's still the advantage there because RS0121 has been driving fantastic, so I think now the gap has closed, and even more so that second spot to Sandman, who, as you said, had been going a bit slow, which he's now changed on soft, so that might help. I think it still plays into RS's hands, considering how well he's been driving so far today.
Yeah, he's built his way up from the back quite well, hasn't he, into this race, and got himself amongst some of the front runners. Do you think there's going to be an upset in the top two? Do you think there's potential here that, we saw just before that safety car came out that Sandman had lost a bit of pace on Herman, and Pleasant Snake and RS0121 had kind of gained that advantage. Now, I know we said that maybe there wasn't enough laps left for them to be able to gain the time on Sandman. Do you think that now that could be a completely different thing? Do you think that because the safety car's out, they've got that time on him, but there's still a chance that they could maybe get a bit more of an advantage on him?
Yeah, I suppose. It just depends on how long we get, really, doesn't it?
Well, I've just noticed, looking at the track at the moment, unless the game's glitching for me, we do have Sandman in second, and just behind him, Tobalenzen, who is in 19th place. However, he's not been allowed to overtake and unlap himself, which means the difference between second and third is a car. So, with it being a McLaren, could there maybe be a bit of an assistance there to help defend against those cars behind? I mean, it's easier to mask that in and amongst plenty of cars restarting a race, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, mate, definitely. Do you think that, I know we're talking about RS0121 and the drive that he's having so far and things like that, but, with someone like a Truckster who has historically performed quite well, Danger David we were talking about earlier, do you think this gives them an opportunity, if they're on point with the driving, to push for maybe a top 7, top 5 finish? Or do you think that everyone's performing relatively consistently today, that we shouldn't see too much change between now and the last, 5 or so laps that we'll get by the time the safety car goes in?
What's the question there, sorry? I missed the question. I heard the facts.
Drivers like Truckster and Danger David, do you think they could benefit from this safety car? Because historically they've driven very well, had some very high performances. Do you think that this will give them a chance with the last 4 or 5 laps to climb up the grid and maybe get a top 7, maybe even top 5 finish?
Danger David, I know, can utilise these sort of opportunities. He is 3 seconds behind Quan at the moment. He'll need to close that gap quickly to get things back underway. Truckster, he's got Peter Caspi, who stayed out on hard tyres just ahead of him. I think he'll have the advantage, of course, on those tyres. There'll be a DRS train, of course, there will, coming back round at the end of the first lap, in around, I reckon, between 6th and 11th place. So a lot of those drivers will be close. If Truckster can get himself to the front of that grid, yes, I think he could keep on to 5th or 6th place quite comfortably. If not, I think it's the overtaking and sometimes a bit rash in the overtaking that might cost him. Especially at this point in the race when you've still got a lot to be going at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think the difficult thing with this game sometimes is the fact that it doesn't allow these cars to unlap themselves. So, we've got a couple of cars that have been lapped, stuck in between some of these cars that, are competing for places, and Truckster's just pitted. So I think that kind of signals the end of those sort of questions that you were asking at that point. I think Danger David still can. I like Quan. I think Quan has really come on as a driver, and I think there's no reason to believe that he couldn't do something similar and build his way up, and both him and Danger David could compete up there into the top 6 as well with RS and Pleasant Snake in form as well, and we know the speed of Sandman and Herman. I think when this safety car does intend to go in, at the end of this lap, more than likely, there's going to be different areas that we are going to see quite a few races. I think Quan and Danger David will build their way up. I think RS and Pleasant Snake will try and keep that battle between them and try and drag maybe even Sandman or Herman as best as they can into that. But all it takes is a quick start from one of those drivers where the other one hasn't had a quick start, and the advantage is there for the drivers behind. So I think the toughest position to be in at the moment is certainly second place. I think Herman, as the pace setter, will have that advantage of starting when he's ready. With Sandman, I think it's a case of, you've got to be alert and ready for when Herman's going, but also alert and ready for the cars behind you knowing when he's going, if that makes sense. That, you've not only got attacking to do to get yourself back in first place, you've also got that defending to do, and you're looking over your shoulder. I think that's where the advantage of having Tobalenzen just behind him will kind of come in, because they've then got to get past him. And I know the blue flag will come out straight away, but do we always listen to a blue flag? Is it immediate? No, there's always that potential, where somebody can ignore a blue flag to begin with, get a couple of warnings before getting a time penalty, and that not really prove too costly for him. So, the advantage is certainly there for Sandman at the moment to try and close that gap on Herman, just because of how Tobalenzen's been placed. But I do favour Pleasant Snake and RS to maybe get a second and third here, or at least one of them upset Sandman and get him off of the front row, or the second step of the podium, should I say. Right, if you haven't just noticed at the top, it did say from the race control that safety car is heading in at the end of this lap. And we are at the end of this lap, which means we are almost set and ready for racing to get back underway under the assistance of Herman, who is the pace setter, and he's going through those last couple of corners now, as we saw him in the bottom left of the screen. He has got VSM Sandman just behind him. 2/10 is the difference. Is there, you've seen a quick start from Tobalenzen, means he doesn't immediately need to give those places up. He's slowed down and then given the place up. As out onto the outside goes VSM Sandman. He's going to keep that outside line alongside Herman just for the moment, who gets a bit more pace into the next couple of corners, and Herman keeps first place, at least for now. 1/10 of a second, less than a tenth of a second for the moment there, separates first and second place, as Pleasant Snake has made his way through, but it still managed to assist VSM Sandman. And there you go, Tobalenzen gets a 10-second time penalty for exceeding track limits, and I can almost guarantee that what he's done is he's gone off track to allow these drivers through, and he's been penalised for following the blue flag rules, which is just typical of Formula 1 games, isn't it? Especially with EA and what we know from them. But Sandman holds on to second place at the moment. Herman 5/10 separates them two. Pleasant Snake now 5/10 behind VSM Sandman. RS 5/10 further behind in fourth place at the moment, as the three continue battling. Danger David now in 10th place as Skid Solo moves up into 9th. Quan falls down into 12th place even on the first lap of the restart. Danger David continues his climb. He's up into 9th place at the moment. Skin, you might have been absolutely right with saying that he'll get himself up into the top 6 by the end of this race, and it's just what we come to expect from Danger David, the guy that's defending champion at the moment. Apologies if you saw at the top that the PlayStation was set to turn off in 10 minutes. That's due to my inactivity of watching the safety car make its way around the track. We're going round to the pit straight for the first time since the restart. At the end of this lap, we are likely to see DRS being re-enabled as Herman takes a 1:29.1, the fastest lap of the race. 7/10 now separates Sandman from Herman. 3/10 separates Pleasant Snake from Sandman. That gap is getting even closer as we stay on board with Sandman just because of the competition at either side. RSO121 is still looking in with an opportunity to try and take third place away from Pleasant Snake, maybe even second place away from Sandman, depending on how the overtake from the Mercedes on the McLaren seems to go. But they're continuing through into Sector 2 at the moment. And we'll see actually what the time is that Sandman sets into Sector 2. 1/10 quicker than his best time so far, so he needs to keep that sort of speed up if he's going to keep close to Herman. 8/10 now separates him from the current race leader. Pleasant Snake in third place. 4/10 separates him. RSO121 now closes that gap as well. A second separates RS from Frankie, as that gap actually gets a little bit closer going around those next couple of corners. Sandman with more defending than attacking to his disposal at the moment. He's got to try and hold off Pleasant Snake while still trying to keep that gap on Herman. This is what I mentioned. It depends when the Mercedes and the Red Bull manage to get past Tobalenzen and then push that pressure on VSM Sandman, the three-time world champion. He won the championship on the second race that we started covering here in the All Assist Soft League. On the final race that we're covering, it is Herman that has taken that gauntlet to the top step of the podium. As it stands, 8/10 separates him from VSM Sandman, who's now nearly a second and outside of DRS. He's not going to get it going on to the pit straight, as DRS has now been enabled for the last couple of laps of this race. Pleasant Snake's just behind him as well, as RSO121 has a look onto the inside of a potential overtake to get himself onto the podium. There's still 2 laps left, which means that lunge could come in the next couple of laps as well and could throw everything into a right. Well, unlikely to see a yellow flag, unlikely to see a safety car, should I say, at the end of this race. But 8 tenths still separates Sandman from Herman, 6 tenths separates Pleasant Snake, and then just behind him as you watch going through, RS0121, the gap is still getting very close between these, and when it comes round to the pit straight, you've got to think that the DRS train that's going to be on is really not going to help Herman, as he's got 3 drivers behind him, all within DRS of each other, and the advantage has got to be with RS0121 in the Red Bull making his way through behind the drivers of Pleasant Snake, Sandman, and of course the momentum that he will carry through, putting the pressure on Herman. Yellow flag in Sector 2, the penultimate lap of the final race of season number 12 as Kwan exits this race. He's got a DNF, he's going to finish in 19th place, so it'll go down as a 19th place finish for him. No safety car, no yellow flag to worry about as Kwan has been taken out of the race. Tobelenzen should be able to get past him to finish in 18th place despite being 2 minutes behind him as it stands at the moment. But we'll cross that bridge when it gets to it. It's not going to do too much for the McLaren despite his teammate being out in second place. But here we go. The DRS train is ready. Sandman will get DRS, as will Pleasant Snake, as will RS0121. Frankie 1811, 2.5 seconds behind. But here goes Pleasant Snake, having a look on the outside of VSM. Sandman goes up into second place. Sandman falls down into third, and his defending isn't done yet, as RS0121 has a look and watches what's happening, with a chance for him to get past Sandman as well, as Sandman takes the defensive duties, goes wide as well, and there goes RS0121 making his way through. I was lost for words as I was trying to describe just what's gone off there, as Herman stays out in first and Sandman falls down into 4th place. You mentioned that not many people can close that gap on him. Not only have they closed the gap due to the safety car, they've now managed to get past him as well. Sandman now down in 4th place, and this could be a case of what you thought was next season going to be Sandman versus Herman versus Danger David could actually be a free-for-all and a Royal Rumble amongst a lot of these cars. We are on the final lap of the final race of this season. Herman is now over a second ahead of Pleasant Snake. We've still got a battle going on between RS and Sandman. In fact, we'll jump on board with RS, who I think has still got a bit of a chance on Pleasant Snake, but this looks like it could be how it's going to finish. So, Skin, I'm running out of voice. I'll let you finish this for the final time for us.
Okay, as we approach the last couple of corners, I want to say thank you to everybody, all your kind words, all the great racing. It's been a pleasure. Special shout out to Quincy for inviting us to the league. But Herman, as you said earlier, he's taken the gauntlet. The new king of the pack becomes the first ever champion that we have seen in the All Assist Soft League, not named VSM Sandman, and gains great confidence and momentum going into the first season without us for 4 seasons. Pleasant Snake, what a drive, finishing second. RS0121 almost claiming second spot, but I'm sure we'll be happy with that final podium spot. Sandman in probably the worst position we've seen him in a race we've commentated on, certainly one that I have anyway, dropping down to 4th in that final lap. Formula 1 Farah is lost his wheel, fuck knows what's happened there. Frankie in 6th, Toxic in 7th, Nay Danger David just failing to reach that top 7 that I mentioned he might be able to do, but safety car went in, finishing 8th, and the rest of the grid has gone as the last driver crosses the line. So that is your top 8 for the race. But Aggie, that is it. Herman wins the race. Danger David, according to the game, gets driver of the day. I'll give you a moment in a second just to say whether or not you agree with it. But as we leave the All Assist Soft League, just from me, it's been a pleasure commentating with you, mate. It's been a pleasure watching these lads race. And again, a special shout out and thank you to Quincy for getting us involved and your kind words along the way. But Aggie, I will let you close us off, mate, with any final words that you want to say as Skin San and Aggie San conclude our time as All Assist Soft League commentators.
You said you were going to call me Agsan throughout the majority of this race, and I think you've done it in every single part of this race. But the fact you've not referred to yourself as Skinamoto right at the end really does disappoint me. But let's not go out on a negative. It's been an absolute pleasure covering the 3 seasons that we've covered here in the All Assist Soft League. 3 different champions. It started with VSM Sandman. Last season we got to see Danger David reach the pinnacle of Formula 1, taking both the Constructors and the Drivers' Drivers' Championship. He took the Drivers' Championship, the Constructors' Championship this season with Herman and with Di Perez, both helping him out in the new Mercedes. They are back with Red Bull next season. It has been an absolute pleasure to cover what has been a very interesting and very entertaining set of drivers make their way through multiple different tracks in the Formula One calendar. It's been a real eye-opener to see that it's not all about keeping those assists on during Formula One, because these drivers have proven that it can be done at a very, very high standard without any of those assists on. Thank you very much for Quincy for bringing us into the league for the time that we've been here, and everybody else for your kind words. It's been an experience is what I'm going to go with. I agree with you that the driver of the day, in fact, I don't even remember who you said the driver of the day was. I'm giving mine to Pleasant Snake. I think he's done very well. With all due respect to Danger David, I think Pleasant Snake's done well, and I think some of it's got to go to RS0121. So I think I'm going to give it to RS at the very end of it. I think Shane's done very well in that Red Bull to get it up to a podium finish as well. He's done a phenomenal job and been consistent throughout the course of this race. Skin, I do want to say thank you very much for joining me. The first season was fantastic from two guys that really thought we're way out of our depth by even agreeing to this, and let's have a laugh and see just how it goes. I think we've done quite well.
I think we've done all right as well, mate, and I'll let you thank me off air for carrying you for the last few months while we've done it.
The last few months, he's missed 3 races, but it's absolutely fine. He's carried me through those as well. That is all we're going to sign off with now. There'll be no post-race interviews because it'll get emotional, I'm pretty sure, just like it does when Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton eventually retires from Formula One as well down the line. That's all we have got for you, though. Thank you very much for joining us once again, and I'm sure we'll find something else to be talking rubbish about down the line.
Absolutely. Aggie Stan, enjoy your night. Done.